Morning, everyone. We're going to start in probably 2 minutes. We're just waiting for the last few to log on here. Okay, so I think we'll fire up and go ahead. Good morning, everyone. I hope that you're all keeping well and safe, and a very warm welcome to MII's very first graduate event. My name is Aoife, and I work on the events team in MII, and I'm also a recent graduate myself. I was talking to the guys this morning and discovered that exactly this day 2 years ago, I graduated. So today I'm going to be taking you through a couple of things that we have going on in MII, and I'll be introducing you guys to the speakers too. Okay, so before we get started, like I said, I just want to mention a couple of things that are happening here that may be of interest to you guys. So firstly, we recently launched a graduate hub on our website, and the hub is filled with relevant content and articles. We have lists of graduate job opportunities. There's free online courses and information about upcoming events and courses with us too. So if you want to head over there, you can do at mii.ie. We also have launched a competition in keeping with that to give one marketing graduate or final year student a chance to have an input into what content is included on our graduate hub. So again, if this is something that would interest you, you can head over to the hub and apply there. Thirdly then, the Qualified Marketer exam is open once again for registrations. The QME has moved online this year to make it accessible for everyone. It is an open book marketing exam whereby you get 1 year complimentary membership with ourselves if you do it. So the next one is taking place on the 14th of November. And again, you'll find more information on that on the Graduate Hub. And lastly, if you haven't already, please do sign up to our graduate newsletter. We send it out I think on the first Friday of every month. And it just lets you know what's going on here in MII. Again, it has loads of relevant content and articles. It just basically reiterates what we have on our website. It also includes this, which is our online calendar of activities. This is October's calendar. And as you can see in the top left, the graduate events are labeled in the color turquoise, but do keep in mind that you are welcome to attend all of our events, not just the graduate ones. So keep an eye on the calendar and see if there's anything there that you want to attend. And then, yeah, I guess we'll get started on this morning. So today's event is getting your CV in front of the decision makers. As I mentioned myself, I'm actually a recent graduate too, so I know exactly how exciting graduating is, but also how scary and uncertain the road ahead can be. And in particular this year, the challenges that you guys are facing, I can't even begin to imagine what that is like. So to help you guys out, we are kicking off the series with Rory Brennan. Rory is a selector and recruiter at Marketing Career Recruitment, and Rory has over 20 years experience of marketing recruitment. So no one better than to show us how to get our CVs in front of the decision makers. Following Rory then is Melissa, and Melissa Dunne is a marketing and communications executive at Repak. Melissa received a first-class honours degree from marketing from IT, Carlow IT, and is one of MII's MSc in Digital Marketing and Analytics Scholars. And today Melissa is going to discuss her role in Repak, her decision to return to education, and her master's interview process. There's no need to frantically scribble down notes because the content from this session is going to be recorded and then sent to you guys. And we really encourage you guys to ask loads of questions. This is a safe space for questions. There's no such thing as a silly question. So please use the chat box facility at the bottom of the screen to ask your questions. And my colleague Aoife Morton will facilitate the Q&A at the end. And lastly, we have a very short survey that will appear in another tab when you close down this webinar. If you could please fill that out, that would be great, and let us know exactly the content that you want to hear from us. You guys know exactly what content you want to hear more than anyone else, so do let us know and we can get working on curating that content for you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass you guys over to Rory and we will get started.
Aoife, thank you very much. Welcome to the Marketing Institute of Ireland's first graduate webinar. Today I will talk through the various options and actions required to getting your CV in front of decision makers. Firstly, let me give you an insight into how a specialist marketing recruiter selects a candidate shortlist for a client vacancy for, let's say, a digital marketing executive who has recently graduated. This insight reveals several key messages that will give you a better perspective of the recruitment process from a hiring manager's standpoint. The key takeaway being a professional and up-to-date LinkedIn profile is paramount to getting interview requests. Secondly, you must be proactive in online networking, getting your CV out to targeted companies and marketeers and HR professionals in companies you desire to get employed in. So it starts with an email from my client requesting a Microsoft Teams diary meeting to discuss through an attached job spec for a digital marketing executive. I accept the invite and chat later that day. The job spec outlines the role title, digital marketing executive, then a summary of the role. Then it outlines the key job responsibilities carried out in the role, and finally, the ideal candidate requirements sought by the employer. My Teams call is at 4 p.m. with the client, in this case, a resourcing manager from the HR team and the marketing manager whom this vacancy reports to. The HR person runs through remuneration package from a basic salary to benefits, the work culture of the company. They also highlight the career opportunities for the marketeer who joins them. The marketeer will give me a better understanding of the demands of the job and key traits that are essential for the candidate to have. In this case, exposure to Google Analytics is expected. Examples of good writing skills will be important as the job holder will be working on content management for the company's brand across social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. As I've worked with this client for several years, the client cuts to the chase and says, Rory, we need another Michelle, referring to a candidate I had placed with them a few years ago in a similar role and who has advanced in the marketing department. This is exactly why companies work with specific marketing recruiters, because just by saying Michelle's name, I will understand immediately the type of personality, drive, smarts they seek this marketeer to have. I zone in on these criteria when I'm doing my graduate talent search for this role over the coming days. So Big takeaway here is having keywords on your CV, such as Google Analytics, content management, social media. When clients put adverts for junior marketing roles on their own websites or job boards, such as LinkedIn and Indeed, the background software or bots will only recommend CVs with keywords in the job description that are on your CV. If you don't have them, your CV will be at the bottom of the list and never viewed. HR professionals are busy and typically spend less than 60 seconds on viewing a CV before deciding to regret or proceed. If they like the CV, they would normally search your name on LinkedIn or click on the link in your CV to bring your profile up on their screen. If they feel your profile is professional and has most of the experience required, they will put you into the initial shortlist to be further reviewed by the marketing manager. The marketing manager will also go through the working culture and supports available to the new hire, the training and development programs, and the demands of the role. Nearly all requests will say they need a hard-working marketing graduate who can learn quickly, take ownership of the job responsibilities outlined in the job spec. Key to everything else will be the personality of the marketeer. They need to be effective communicators and have confidence in their abilities and the clarity at interview to demonstrate these abilities and academic successes. So, by the end of the Teams call, I have a full understanding of the marketing job responsibilities, the personality traits required, that the marketeer needs to be successful in this vacancy. The resourcing manager then tells me they have just posted the job on the company's internal job board, which gives employees a chance to refer a friend, that is a marketeer, to the vacancy and opens the vacancy up to anybody else in the company who wants to apply to it. They also tell me they have a couple of CVs that look good that came directly into HR in the last few months unsolicited. So, big takeaways here, guys. Online networking with marketeers a few years older than you and who are in brand manager or marketing manager roles is a great idea. Build your network with marketeers on LinkedIn, from alumni to marketeers you aspire to be, to marketeers and companies you would love to work for. Many companies offer awards to employees who refer candidates for internal roles. This referral fee is much less than what recruiters like me get, so it is in the interest of the companies to promote these schemes. Secondly, sending your CV in unsolicited to hiring managers of companies you aspire to work in is very much a worthwhile exercise. So get your CV out there. Use short emails if you're going unsolicited. The more you activate your CV, the more chance you have of getting interview requests. And that's your goal. On this note, let's say you hit the jackpot and the marketeer says, yes, they are looking for an intern in the marketing department. Come in for an interview. Well, you're feeling great. You must then research the company, understand their business model, and what the marketeer delivers if employed in that company. You have to use an interview wisely. Finally, the client informs me that this is an immediate vacancy and they would like to get my shortlist ASAP so they can start the interview process. I thank them for their time and insights they have given me and promise to revert within 3 days with a shortlist of candidates. The marketing manager asked me, do I have potential Michelles in consideration? And I confirm yes, which means it's less likely they will open up to other recruitment agencies. And then the resourcing manager confirms I have the role of a solo for 1 week, bar CVs they may get from the employee referral system on the internal inboard and the couple of CVs sent in unsolicited that look good. So I start my talent search for you. I already have a file of CVs under recent graduates. Under recent graduate smarts. So the recent graduate who has the smarts of Michelle and has some hands-on experience in managing and optimizing the digital and social media marketing campaigns and is strong on Google Analytics. So as a specialist marketing recruiter, I have a file of CVs under recent graduates with content management experience or exposure. I completed 2 similar roles earlier in the year and looked through my shortlist for those roles to see who is still on the marketplace. If a CV jumps out at me, then I immediately look up the name on LinkedIn, one, to see if they are still on the marketplace and that the profile has a crisp, positive look about it. So a massive takeaway is to have a professional photo on your LinkedIn profile. And even with limited professional marketing experience, the profile reads crisp and fresh with good academic results and relevant content. Remember, using keywords like content management systems, social media, paid social media campaigns, analysis of Facebook and social media platforms, etc., will get you noticed. Because the client has identified the exact personality and smarts of Michelle as the benchmark criteria, I am only interested in CVs that really look smart and point to a bright and resourceful young marketeer. I bypass all others. This exercise gives me about 6 potential contenders, of whom I have already interviewed 2 in recent months. I send off the job spec to all 6, and I get 4 yeses with interest in the job, as it's a big marketing department in a big branded culture. Most marketing graduates wish list for their career trajectory to take off. Of the 4 who reverted, I've already interviewed one of these, and my notes rate her highly and on par with Michelle's benchmark. From a recruiter's viewpoint, this is great. Getting a really good marketeer early in your shortlist is a great start. But I need more. So I do a FaceTime and Zoom calls with the other 3 over the next 24 hours, of which one is particularly good in my opinion. The other's not so good. I have 2 fully screened and shortlisted candidates at this stage. Still need more, as both of these candidates have informed me they are in other marketing recruitment processes, but do have a definite aspiration to work with my client, as it's a major global brand owner. It's always important for the recruiter to have a pipeline of fresh talent. So after my team's call with the client, I advertise the role to my marketing network of over 2,700 connections on LinkedIn. In this case, I don't specify the client name, but have an attractive generic company profile and imagery to get the role noticed by my network, many of whom may share this opportunity. This is a powerful network to reach out to, and many senior marketeers will pass this opportunity on to recent grads whom they know may be looking for work. And word gets out, Rory Brennan of Marketing Career Recruitment has a nice graduate role. So within 24 hours of me posting the job live, I get just over 20 expressions of interest. I have a high benchmark, so I whittle it down to 4 of these who look very good on paper, and I send them the full job spec and set up a FaceTime or Zoom call with them over the next 24 hours. I assess their abilities and find 2 strong contenders and agree to send them to the client also. So now I have 4. I'm in a good place, but I now do what every talent acquisition manager in HR departments does every single day. I start a talent search on LinkedIn using keywords. So I put in digital marketing executive plus Dublin. This gets me 134 results. I also search digital marketing intern plus Dublin and get 42 results. I scan through these profiles and identify 6 and send all 6 a note via LinkedIn that have a great client looking for a person with their marketing profile and would they like to receive the full job spec. 4 immediately revert and I send off the spec. 2 come back and say they are on more than 30K, which is what the job pays, but do keep them informed of more senior roles in the future. The other 2 are keen to progress, so I have a FaceTime chat with them. In this case, neither was as good as the candidates in my shortlist already. I regret them in a few days. In the FaceTime, MS, Teams, Zoom interviews, I have a series of questions I go through that will quickly help me rule the candidate in or out of this client opportunity. A question I always ask them would be, what would their previous boss say about them if I was to ring them up and ask why was, let's say, Danny good at this job during his employment with them? This is a great question for you to showcase your traits. Stakeholder management is important. So a question I would also ask is, can you give me an example of when you have had to influence another peer in a time-sensitive situation? Planning and prioritizing is a job prerequisite. So I'd also ask them, how do you organize yourself and your workload? Ongoing learning is a great question area. So I ask, what did you learn from an experience in your CV? The toughest question I ask the graduate is, how important is social media for driving retention and acquisition? This needs to be answered in a concise manner, drawing upon academic training, your exposure to the topic, and pulling together a very smart answer, demonstrating your sharp thinking viewpoints. This question knocked most of the out of the recruitment process. So once you land an interview, prepare, prepare, prepare. So within 72 hours of getting the role briefing in the team's call, I emailed the resourcing manager my shortlist. This consists of a paragraph on each of the individuals and 4 CVs attached. My opening line will be, morning resourcing manager, hope all well. Outlined below is 4 contenders for your digital marketing executive vacancy. All are available for immediate interview, and of the 4, I reckon Rachel and Peter have similar personality traits, drive, and the potential that Michelle has. My paragraph on Rachel is 2019 2 honors marketing business DCU grad with postgrad from MII and lots of Google Analytics coursework, etc. Bright individual, already demonstrated to me that she is hardworking and resourceful. Highly effective communication skills, relevant work experience and work placements. Salary expectation 30K on basic and can start immediately. For all the candidates who applied but did not make the final shortlist, I tell them I will hold their CV on file for future junior marketing roles if they match the client's brief. My shortlist gets acknowledged from my client, and 2 weeks later, Rachel, woohoo, gets the job offer and accepts it after a 2-stage interview process. Not alone did she beat others in my shortlist, but others also which the client interviewed from the unsolicited CVs and the employee referral scheme. All marketing recruitment is very competitive. So again, you have to be competitive in your search for job interviews. Rachel won this process because she was smart, goal-orientated, used limited professional experience she has in her CV to her best advantage, i.e. what she learned when worked in Dunnes Stores, on the checkout for a busy Christmas period, and as a bar girl waitress when in San Francisco after she graduated from DCU in 2019. Rachel made sure she was up to date on Google Analytics and an array of other coursework she took upon herself to do. She interviewed with zest and positivity and had researched my client's business well and demonstrated she was smart and a quick learner. Her CV and LinkedIn profile backed this up, and she also did well in sports, showing a fighting and a resilience quality, which the marketeer who interviewed her was very impressed by. This is a real example in that it is exactly how most recruiters and HR talent acquisition managers in employers recruit a marketing graduate or executive. So in summary, getting your CV decision makers, you must do all of the following. Have a professional and active LinkedIn profile. If you're just starting this exercise, then look at other marketing executives that stand out on LinkedIn. This should give you an insight in what a best-in-class LinkedIn profile looks like. Online networking is your daily job while waiting to land a marketing job. Network to your alumni, marketers you aspire to be, companies you aspire to work in, social bloggers in the marketing field. Whoever you think may be of assistance or might get you an introduction or interview request. Follow job boards from LinkedIn, Indeed, to the MIIs, to the PRIIs, to Recruit Ireland, etc. Have a sharp 1 to 2 page CV. Microsoft has free templates, and you have the likes of canva.com to make your CV stand out. Go to recruitment specialists like me and any large or niche recruitment firms that have marketing client vacancies. Normally, they will only interview when they have a specific marketing graduate role, but it's important that you have a recent CV in with them. The Marketing Institute of Ireland has a full listing of marketing graduate schemes open on its web portal, so get applying. The more applications, CVs, and online networking you do, the more chance you have of getting a positive reaction from a decision maker and progress to interview stage. When you get to the interview, prepare and believe in yourself, because the client is always hoping you shine brightly at interview. Thank you.
That was brilliant, Rory. Next up we have Melissa. This is going to talk about her career to date and why she applied for the MSc in Digital Marketing Analytics. Thanks.
So, hi guys. My name is Melissa Dunne, and I am a communications and marketing executive at Repak. For those of you who don't know, Repak, we are an environmental not-for-profit with a social mission. And we have over 3,400 members who pay us fees every year based on the amount of packaging that they place on the market. So if you take, for example, Aldi or Lidl and all the packaging that goes along with their products, we charge our members a fee based on that. And then our fees are used to subsidise the recycling and recovery of these products on the market. So take, for example, any household recycling bin, bottle banks and civic community sites all over the country. We actually fund those at the minute and are managing that. That's just a bit of background in case you didn't know. So my career history to date, this time last year, I was in the same position that a lot of you are, and I'll have to commend you for being so resilient for what you're after coming through in the past few months. For one, for getting through your final year in college, which I know myself is extremely tough, but for doing it in the middle of a global pandemic. So I feel like you should all highlight that going forward with some of the points that Rory gave when applying for marketing roles, because you'll be a standout in the current environment that we're in. So I had a background in retail, and I worked for Argos for nearly 5 years. And when I started applying for graduate roles, I utilize all my consumer facing information. So like working on the floor with salespeople, managing planograms, anything that I could tie back to my academic experience that I got during my degree from IT Carlow and push that forward when applying for roles. I then came out of college and graduating with first class honours in IT Carlow, and I got awarded the Market Tried Student of the Year for my academic excellence within the course. And I didn't push for a big marketing role at first. I went back to my local credit union and worked there for 8 months as the marketing manager and kind of building them from the ground up in terms of formulating a new digital strategy for the team and just bringing a sense to the credit union that they needed to move online and how we could get them into the digital space in the current environment. From there then I finished up in December and I was on the hunt for marketing graduate roles. And the one thing I would stress that was so important, and Rory highlighted a couple of times, is your networking. Your LinkedIn is so important when it comes to this kind of stuff. You need to be up to date. It needs to be proactive. You need to be actively sharing and like your aspirations and what networks you want to go into. So if there was one top tip I would say looking back on how I applied, would just make sure that you highlight your LinkedIn, that it's linked on top of your CV, and that you just keep pushing it forward all the time. So from there, I actually used a recruitment agency to get into the current role that I am within now. And I actually didn't apply for the specific role that I am in now. I applied for a different one and I didn't get that. But the recruiter saw what talents I had and put me forward for the current role that I'm in now. And that's how I ended up where I am. Going in line with this then, some top learnings I learned from applying for graduate roles was that digital marketing is so important in the current climate. Digital is no longer a branch of the comms strategy for any marketing department. Digital just is. It is expected that any marketing graduate now has to have intense and comprehensive understanding of the subject area, and that you can highlight this when you move into any firm. So taking this on board, I made it my mission that I would highlight my experience in digital from the little bit of experience I had in the credit union. So that involved me using different types of CMSs, monitoring the Google Analytics, setting up Google AdWords, your day-to-day basics that you learn while you're in college. So monitoring your Google trends, like a content strategy, making sure that you're posting at the right time on social media, that your social media channels are appropriate to the different audiences you're communicating with, whether that's a B2C audience or a B2B, but making sure that you're relevant and you're timely in the space that you're operating within. So going forward from there, I started my search to find an MSc program. I always knew that when I left education that I would always go back, but I had to wait until the right course hit me to where I would go. Marketing, as you all know, is an extremely practical field, and any recruitment agency will always look for your practical experience when applying for a role. I lacked this a little bit, especially in the area of digital marketing, but I knew it was the area I wanted to go into. So I looked for a course that could give this to me. And the MSc in TUD was one of the only courses that I could do on a part-time basis, and that integrated fully practical and academic on a great server. So I made it my mission then to email the program director. From there I got a bit more background to see if the course would actually suit me and my requirements. As I was working full time, I actually couldn't afford to take out another year of my life and go back to part-time work to dedicate to my studies. So it had to operate on a part-time basis for me. And then I was notified about the scholarship experience. So from there, the program director, and I'd have to say everybody in MII were extremely supportive throughout. I had sat the MII Qualified Marketeer exam in the November of last year, just as another way to bump up my CV and show that I was being proactive within the field of marketing and that I was taking my career and my passion quite seriously, and that I had went out of my own way to sit this exam and demonstrate my knowledge. And a funny thing within the exam is that it was actually based on the digital marketing topic. So that just highlighted again that this was the area that I knew I wanted to go in. So then moving on to when I actually started the application process, I had to highlight a number of things. One, why would I be fit for this course? So that was truly down to, could I manage the course down to time management? Could I bring experience to my classmates and help them learn, as well as draw from my own experience that I had? And the course itself is extremely comprehensive. So from there, I was notified by the program director that I had been shortlisted. From the shortlist then, we had to prepare PowerPoint presentations in which you're put in front of the actual program director and the leader from MII in terms of the course and how it would work. And you have to sell yourself. And it's a really important tip I would give to anybody going forward in any kind of a marketing position. you are your biggest asset. You have to be confident and believe in yourself and pushing yourself for roles. So make sure you vouch for number one. And like Rory said, whether that be you mightn't have an abundance of experience behind you, it might be retail, it might be a part-time job, you link that back to your academic experience and how you put theory into practice. And that's where you sell yourself. So from there, after the application process, it wasn't too long. It was fairly good. It was all conducted remotely as well, which was brilliant because it meant while working from home, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I could kind of balance both. I got notified that I was the recipient of the scholarship, which meant I could actually carry forward with my academic career, because I can say you can all imagine when you're on a graduate role, costs are tight, especially when you're moving out and it's all your first time abroad. So it's all new territory for you. So the support for me was greatly accepted and I couldn't have done it without it. But MII are definitely an organisation you need to get on your side. And if you're not a member already, I would highly suggest that you do the QME this November and just get yourself to broaden that network. There are so many great marketeers out there. Like Rory said, that if you link in or just aspire to be linked in with them, you'll learn so much from what they share on LinkedIn, different perspectives, what's going on in the industry, that you can show that you have a proactive interest in and link that back. So going on to the MSc, what I recommend, it's going to be time consuming. There's a big ask with it, but we cover lots of subjects that are highly relevant at the moment. So I only started there 3 weeks ago and we're already into our digital metrics topic, which, as you all know, Google Analytics, Python, Tableau, the ability for a marketeer to be able to draw on data as well as having that creative spark is highly sought after. And social media as well, being able to draw meaning from a data set and link that back into an overall comm strategy is very, very important. So that subject I'm hoping will broaden the knowledge I have already in the subject, but will make me stand out going forward with roles. The MSc itself, I think my program director gave a stat that over 50% of marketing graduates now have an MSc when applying for jobs. So for myself, I thought it highly necessary that I had this going forward, or I just wouldn't stand out within the market because it is so competitive. I found, like, with interviews, you send out your CV, you might get turned down, you send out another one, you do it and you repeat the process again and again. So it's just to make sure that you get into that space that you want, but don't beat yourself up when you don't get it first time around, because not everything is for everybody either. And I'm a big believer in, they say, what's for you won't go by you. And I always link this back into my foundations in marketing. When I went to the IT Carl Open Day back in, I think it was 2014 or 2015 when I started my course, I went in to actually sit a law degree, and I went to go to a talk about law. And I read my timetable wrong and I ended up in a marketing lecture. And from that lecture, I made a decision then and there that my career would be in marketing. Complete and utter different topic and subject to what I had originally been interested in. But just put it for you, what's for you won't go by you. So don't get deterred if you don't get that job role that you had your heart set on first time. Everything will work out. And coming from a graduate perspective as well, it is quite hard to push forward sometimes when you feel like I don't have enough experience for this role, or I'm not an expert in that topic. What I always say is, you're not an expert in that topic yet. You just need to upskill, and everybody is upskilling all the time. Like with myself, the MSc will help me upskill in the field that I'm hoping to branch my career further out into the future. So that's just kind of a quick role about what I do and where I am at the minute. And if any of you after this want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free. As Rory said, you should always broaden your network. So I'll hand you back over to Aoife then, and if you have any questions for me, anything in the Q&A, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Rory and Melissa. That was just brilliant. Some great pieces and nuggets of information for our graduates and everyone on the call. I know we have some questions coming through, so Rory and Melissa, if you come back on the call and mute your mics, we will start with that. So, quick question from Jane. Can you please repeat the CV format you recommend, Rory?
Could you repeat the question?
Can you please repeat the CV format you recommend?
basically, I say you go on to Microsoft.com and just put down CV formats, and that'll give you a whole array of CV formats. It should be 1 or 2 pages. It's more so 1 page nowadays for marketing grads and marketing executives, but 2 pages is fine, and it should be fairly straight to the point. If you just once you Google, nearly every big recruitment company will have examples of good CV practice, so you can look at them as well. It's all out there, but I'm a believer in 1 2-page CV, straight to the point. I think there should be a picture on CV because it should parallel what is on LinkedIn. It should be very close to the 2 imageries. So I think if you do that, you can spruce it up a little bit by looking at canva.com. I'm certainly seeing a lot of people who have completed MSCs and postgrads have 1-page CV, and it's very, very good. And it lands a lot in terms of the kind of bot. It ticks all the bot scenarios in terms of content management and all that. They fit in a lot into 1 page. And there's loads of examples out there, so just go searching,
Perfect. I think that answers Julie's questions. She asked, would you recommend 1 or 2 pages CVs? Which I think you have said is perfect. Relating back to your LinkedIn profile, should it be a copy of your CV, Rory, or should that you send to potential employers, or can you be more creative on LinkedIn? Should you include the likes of your videos, your links to your social
good question. Again, it's all out there already. Okay, so basically, as I just said, it should parallel your CV to some extent, but also you've got that creative streak in terms of putting the content, some interesting content stuff which would never fit into a CV. So if you've done a YouTube, or you've done an app, or whatever you've done, I think it's relevant, or you like something, you put that up there in terms of content. So go cherry pick maybe the top 10 marketeers who you aspire to be, and look at all of those LinkedIn profiles, and then plagiarize, look at what you think is best for yourself. But it's all out there. So basically, it's all about research, and just continue to look at what other people are doing, and people who are investing in practice and good jobs, they normally have very clear, concise, slick LinkedIn profiles.
Perfect, great. Would you add a photo to your CV? Do you think that's does it make a difference, Rory?
100%, yeah. Melissa, I don't know, but I would certainly, I would look at a photo, and the photo should be the exact same as the one that's on LinkedIn. So yes, I would add a photo, and it should be professional, and a positive, cheery photo,
Exactly, and I would feel as well, Rory, just when you touch on the topic of photos, it's very easy nowadays to actually take a professional photo, like with your smartphone. Once you make sure your background is right, your lighting is right, that you're wearing the appropriate clothes, because it makes a hell of a difference if a recruiter sees someone that's polished as opposed to someone who's kind of in their jumper.
It's so competitive out there. You don't want to see kind of a clip out of somebody at their devs or whatever, which I've certainly seen on some. But I think once you get started on LinkedIn, the best thing is, particularly if you are just starting on LinkedIn and you're just coming out and entering into the workforce, just look at other people who are a few years ahead of you out there and see what they're doing. And again, you just cut to the chase and say, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. It's all out there. It's all best practice. You just look for best practice. And that's what you've been trained to do during your college times, is look for best practice.
Great. Nicola has a good question for you, Rory. Any extra recruitment tips for a mature candidate studying for an MSc who has been out of the workplace for quite a few years?
Yeah, well, back to the basics in terms of sharp CV. If you've been out of the workplace for a number of years, you probably want that CV to be 1 page. Okay, so as I say, resourcing managers, talent acquisition managers will look at it, have a short span of attention because they're busy. They will look at the CV. So he or he needs to have the picture on it, a summary of their experience, and so say they may have been out minding the family, bringing up the family, and rightly so, and they want to get back on the market. The most important thing is you highlight your education, and that's recent, because if I see somebody's been out of the market for, let's say, more than 2 years, and I don't see recent education, I'm just going to go walk straight past that CV. If it's recent education, it means they're at the races again in terms of their competitive coursework that you do today wasn't available 2 years ago, 3 years ago, particularly in the digital space. It just wasn't there. So if it's recent education, people look at that. And if some of the previous work experience was good and demanding, that's great. Like, you know, but keep it short and concise. You don't want to see a 2-page CV from somebody who's been out of the environment for a while, because it means they're not at the races. You have to be race fit to get an interview.
I actually have a question for you, Melissa.
Sure.
Have you, obviously you were very driven, you knew exactly what you wanted to do in marketing and the direction that you wanted to go in. And I suppose it's a question to you as well, Rory, but have you guys got any advice maybe for those graduates who don't know what direction in marketing they want to go? They studied marketing in general and are still, you know, like I said earlier, the road ahead is quite uncertain, and not everyone finishes college and knows exactly what they want to do. So do you have any advice for those who are in marketing but just don't know exactly where in marketing they want to go?
I suppose from my perspective, I would say look back to the subjects that you've done and see what kind of projects that you enjoyed the most. I know for me, when I did, I was really into my kind of international business and my digital, and it was a throw-up between the two. But look back to see what projects did you enjoy being creative on, what ones did you feel like you got the most out of, and then kind of see what kind of a career path can stem from there. Because marketing is so broad and there's so many different branches to communications now more than ever, you will stand out if you have a specialism. But to find your specialism, I would always say look back to the projects you've done, what parts of it you liked, what parts of it you didn't like, and to see, like, did that provoke critical thinking? Because when you go into an actual role yourself, they'll look for that critical business analyst. They'll look for you to draw links between the environment that you're in and what you're going to propose in terms of a communications plan. So that would be my top tip.
Yeah, Melissa, that's so correct in terms of most people find their feet in marketing and then kind of head towards a specialization. And there could be insights, you know, research, right to the digital aspect we're talking about, PR, you name it. There's so many different avenues of marketing. And a lot of them can go into general business. But if you're unsure, if you're coming out of college and you're still kind of not totally sure what you want to do is try and get any job somewhere, and just so you're doing something. And then it's a matter of finding out, okay, is this working? Do I like this? If I do, how do I move up in the world you're now in? But I think it's important to try and keep busy. And if you can't get a job, do academia, I think is right, work experience, anything basically. But the most important is keep yourself busy and you'll find your feet. Most marketeers, the first job necessarily isn't the place. Like some marketers join a B2B company and they're not necessarily, they don't have the DNA to be. B2B marketing is much tougher than B2C marketing because it's not as glamorous. And many marketeers find B2B a lot tougher, but some literally like a duck to water, love it and become really successful. Other people may join Diageo and think it's, oh, this is going to be great. But suddenly they just don't like it. Like, you know, so, and they normally find their feet, but I think that be active and try and get something and keep, if you demonstrate to anybody at a meeting that you've been doing something, whether it be academia or whatever, that's good. Like, you know, people want to see that a person is busy, particularly younger people that are busy doing things, trying to achieve something, whatever the goal is. As long as it's their goal and they've achieved something, that's something to talk about in an interview, like, you know.
Perfect. Jenny has a good question. How would you recommend grads or final year students prepare for video interviews? I'm sure many of them will encounter them as part of online assessments for graduate programs. So how would you recommend the best prepare themselves?
Practice makes perfect. Simple as that. Like, you know, do it with your friends. And trust me, I mean, I talk to loads of people. Look, because nowadays you don't do the face-to-face as much, people are going to be nervous, okay? But it's a matter of just finding a part of the conversation where you get them into their zone. So likewise, you into your own zone. So just try and feel comfortable about it. And always, before you go into any Zoom call, have one, mark down one thing you want to do no matter what during that call. And if that's the only thing you get across as a point, that's fine. But people, as a marketing recruiter and dealing with HR people the whole time, most people are quite lenient today because they realize, it is uncomfortable basically speaking in your own home to people who are, going through a CV and all that. It's not their natural place, but it is becoming the norm. So you do have to learn and adapt, and you should be continuing to get better and better. So once again, all academia practice makes perfect.
Perfect. Julie has another question in. Do you think Leaving-Cert results or subjects are relevant on a CV in terms of graduate programs or jobs?
The subjects aren't relevant, but the score is definitely relevant. I'm kind of old school, so if I see somebody with a high Leaving Certificate result, I'll take note of that. I'll definitely take note of that. And if it's a very high one, I really will take note of that. And that could be from, let's say, if they had a 520 plus or 510 plus on the Leaving Certificate, or maybe they got a first 1-1 in whatever college they've gone to. If they got a 1-1 in college, I always take note of that. And talent acquisition managers 100% take note of that. The reason they take note of that is it shows the person has displayed a degree of tenacity and competitiveness. And that's so important in the world of marketing. It's a very competitive world. You're fighting in your marketing budget to get sales in. It's competitive. So the flip side of that is, I recently just had a Teams call with a person who had a very average Leaving Certificate. When I mean average, basically it was probably just over 400, 402, 403. But they'd excelled in, they got an okay honors degree, but their masters, they got a first. So, and why? Because they love the masters. They love the topics in the masters. And they found their feet. So just because you have an average Leaving Certificate, go into academia, find what you're good at, and then push forward in that niche. So this girl, I'm definitely going to place. She's absolutely wicked, and she's already in a really good job, and she's thinking about her next move because she's already learned more than she can in this job in the space of a year and a half. But her academia blew me away. The fact that she had that Leaving Certificate and then got a top result from a very good college. So yeah, it's not the be all and end all, but you have to keep pushing in life to get on,
Sure. Perfect. Lucy has a question. What would you say would be students' biggest downfall during the interview process? As well, I'm going to ask also, what interview questions do you think catches graduates out the most in interviews?
The catch one out was the one I explained, and that question would catch a hell of a lot of people out. So you have to read a job spec. When you get onto the interview, read the job spec thoroughly and prepare to answer and give examples. There's a thing called a STAR, which is basically the way to answer questions, which is situation, action, and result. So if I throw you a question, you give me a situation, then the action you took and the result. That's kind of the advanced class, but the answer is give clear and concise answers, but you have to do your research. So if you give a lousy answer, that's not going to, you can give one lousy answer, but you can't give 6 or 7. Then you're gone. You've lost my attention. You've lost HR manager's attention. Silly things in terms of processes. Let's say Aldi is one of my clients for the marketing department. And before anybody actually gets an interview, they have to do an assessment center, which basically focuses in on numerics, verbal reasoning. And if you don't get a pass mark, you don't get the interview. So, so assessment and assessment centers, a lot of the big companies have them. It just way whittles down and focuses in on the real talent. So that's another area you need to be aware of. But generally, an interview, just try and be comfortable, be concise, don't ramble. Most important thing is stay on script. and keep it concise and stop talking when you have to stop talking. Don't.
And just another question, how important is it to have interests on a CV? Because you often hear that interviewers want to know more than your academia or whatever you got in your
absolutely
in your college and stuff. So how important is that, and is that something that people who are interviewing look for, as opposed to just the academic side of things? I'm sure, Melissa, as well, you probably had interest down on your CV, so just the importance of them, I suppose.
Yeah, well, Melissa, what did you have sport-wise or competitive-wise? You look competitive.
Yeah, I would be. I'm in it to win it, as my mum would say.
Great answer.
I was big into like my running, so like kind of athletics was my main thing.
Excellent.
I would have played team sports, but that would have been more kind of like at leaving cert level, and I didn't carry them through into my actual college career. But like I would have had things that like I play music, all just kind of like my generalized interests to show that I had a passion outside of my field as well. But definitely I'd say running and athletics would have been my main one that I was pushing forward with when people ask in interviews, because there is such a time commitment when it comes to running. And you're constantly trying to beat the clock and beat your score. So there's constant improvement. So when I was in an interview, I would have always linked that kind of an interest in that. I was constantly trying to improve, build on my pace, build on my times, to the same way that I was building my academic career and my future career goals.
Yeah, well, that answers your question, Aoife, in one simple go, in terms of that's what typically a recruiter would just love to hear, that, and how it's explained in conjunction with Melissa's career. So you're dovetailing both of them together. So the answer 100% is yes. I remember a couple of years ago, again, a graduate recruitment campaign, and I rang the person, saw the CV, and said, "Geez, I better ring this person immediately. They look really good." He was out doing a 5-mile jog over in Salt Hill in Galway. And then I looked down the CV, sure enough, he did marathons, only a young man. So straight away, I was blown away in terms of, I just like that attitude. I pushed to get him the interview with the client over 1 or 2 other people. And the client came back and says, "Rory, you're right, great attitude. If he brings that to our work," which I think he can because he did a good interview, and the guy got the job, did well, progressed.
That's perfect. I think we'll just wrap it up there now. So thank you again to Rory and Melissa for a great webinar.
Thank you.
As Aoife mentioned at the start of this webinar, our next qualified marketing exam is taking place online on Saturday, November 14th. To sign up, check out Join by Exam on our website. The exam costs €45, and if you pass, you receive 1 year's free membership. Also, a quick reminder to everyone to check out our Graduate Hub, which has exclusive content for all our graduates. We have articles on landing your dream job, tips for acing interviews, and also graduate opportunities. Also, if anyone would like to enter our graduate edu competition, closing date is next Friday, October 16th. There is a 1-for-all gift card up for grabs for the winning entry. Thanks again to Rory, Melissa, and Aoife for everything today, and to everyone for joining us this morning. So we'll leave it at that. Just a reminder to fill out our survey for feedback. Thank you.
Super. Thanks a million, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.